this morning we are going to deal with this is going to be a one-time, one-off message. I am not finishing my Christian cliches sermon series today. And the reason is because over the last week, I have received more feedback, more emails, and more texts over the past week, starting with the end of last week's service until yesterday. I have never, even during COVID, and over 20 years of ministry, I've never received as much feedback as I have about this whole Charlie Kirk thing that's in the news right now. And so we're going to talk about it, and that's not a bad thing. Now, I heard a bit of a groan, so some of you are like, ah, and some of you are like, yeah. And I heard both of those responses in all of my emails and texts. So I just want to say a couple of things before we even get started. First of all, I'm going to ask, one of the things I love about this church and that I love on Sunday mornings is we have a lot of fun, and we get weird amens, we get good amens, we get strange timed amens, and that's all part of the fun, and I love that. And I do not want that to stop. I want that to start again next week immediately. However, this week I'm going to ask if we could try, no matter how strongly we feel about something, not to shout out an amen, because some of the topics we're talking about today, Christians have wildly different feelings about. And I'm proud to say, here in this church, have wildly different feelings about. And the reason I'm proud of that in this church is I really feel like the body of Christ needs to transcend politics. And we as churches often talk about transcending politics, but you haven't transcended politics until you have people with different politics in the same body. So I'm going to ask, just for the respect of your neighbors and the people in front of you and behind you, this one time, next week, we'll go back to being crazy Crossviewers. Get it out of your system right now if you need to do that again. There, you got that out? So I want to talk about this. I want to say a couple other things, just to get started. I'm just making sure. I'm being super careful here today. Well, here, let me just tell you what I'm calling this. I think the most unifying question we can ask right now is this. As Christians, we are not going to agree on politics, nor should we. However, I think in a time like this, when politics is very divided, including among Christians, I think the most unifying thing we can ask today at church is this. Considering that we are Christians, what would Jesus do? Of course, that's a famous thing. Now. Following Christ in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk. Two more statements just to get this started. I'm being very careful today. Number one, this is a safe space today for everyone. This is a safe space for everyone, regardless of your politics, regardless of what you think of Charlie Kirk's politics, regardless of how you are interpreting this event or not interpreting this event. I want to say right now, this is for all of us as Christians, and nobody's going to be ridiculed. And I'm not coming down with a hammer on anyone to say this side is right or that side is right. This is about what would Jesus do now. So everybody here, you are safe. We are safe. We're together. The second thing I want to say that I think we can all agree on, and again, I'm going to just ask, this will be the last time I remind you, we'll just keep the amens and the yeses down, but I think we can all agree, and we all should be able to agree, that Charlie Kirk being murdered was a horrible, evil, tragic thing. Regardless of any one person's view of this or that or politics, we can all agree, we should at least all be able to agree, that his murder was a horrible, tragic, terrible, evil thing. It is very sad for his family, his wife, his kids. It's sad for all of us as human beings. It was a terrible, wicked act. And nobody should ever celebrate someone's murder, and when that happens, that is disgusting and disturbing, regardless of our politics. But now, moving forward, what would Jesus do now? And I want to talk about some of the strong emotions, because as I was thinking about this week, I realized, because one of the reasons I didn't, well, you're going to see some of the reasons why I didn't say anything last week as we go through this sermon, but as I thought about it this week and thought about, should I say something? Like, I know lots of people want me to say something and people are questioning. I realized that as Christians, we are feeling very strong emotions right now, and we're feeling different strong emotions. Some of us are feeling intense grief. Some of us are feeling intense anger. And some of us, on a more positive emotional note, are feeling intensely inspired. So the question is, how do we deal? And this message of what would Jesus do now is going to revolve around those three things: grief, anger, and inspiration. And I want to start, though, before we get into the specifics of grief and then anger and then inspiration, I want to we're going to go to James, and we're going to ask ourselves, in the midst of strong emotions, what kinds of words and tone would Jesus speak now? Because again, we're Christians, so the most important question any of us could ask, regardless of our politics, is this: what would Jesus do? What kinds of words and tone would Jesus speak now? And we're going to go to James 3 to start to get some help. James 3 says this: the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire. Now, here in 2025, if James was writing this now, he would not just talk about the tongue, he would talk about the tongue and thumbs. Wouldn't he? Like, it's not just the tongue, it's what we type and send out into the world of the interweb, the social medias on the line. The tongue and the thumbs are a small part of the body, but they make great boasts, and they can start massive fires. I want you to notice the contrast here between small and great. Our words, whether we speak them or whether we type them, take small effort. That's why often we don't think they're that big of a deal. They don't take much energy. It doesn't take much energy to type my strong opinions into the internet and then to post them for all to see. Never mind the fact that whenever I feel strongly about something, by very definition of how our human brains work, when we feel strongly about something, we think we're right. It's always interesting when people feel very strongly about opposite things. Words take small effort, but notice what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. Words take small effort to say, they take small effort to type, but they can create tremendous destruction and damage. And then he carries on. He says this: a world of evil among the parts of the body, it corrupts the whole body. In other words, our words. You know, it's interesting as Christians, when we think about a life of integrity, you might think to yourself, you know, I'm not cheating on my spouse. I'm not, cheating on my finances at work. I'm not, blah, blah. I'm not murdering anyone. I'm a person of integrity. I'm honest. I'm a person of integrity. And yet, you can be a person of tremendous integrity, but if you are careless about your words and you are spouting sparks into the dry forest, it says that actually stains your whole body, that actually stains your integrity. If our words are destructive, if our words increase destruction and anger and upset, all that other integrity is stained. That's what James is saying. But as individuals in an individualistic culture, we often just stay with what it does to us. But I want to go back to the previous verse, what a great forest. The bigger damage is not what it does to us as individuals, it's what it does to the community and to our society. Our words as individuals can actually set our society and our communities ablaze. I'm going to tell you right now, the tinder is pretty dry. And we all bear responsibility as Christians here. It's not for us to blame everybody else. Why is it bad? It's because of the media. It's because of this. It's because of that person. Usually it's people from the other voting bloc or the other side of us on an issue. All of us bear responsibility when the forest is dry and ready to be lit on fire. All of us bear responsibility together and as individuals for if this thing is going to be started on fire. Now, I want to talk for a moment about, let's leave the fire analogy on a shelf for just a moment, and I want to talk about hurricanes. All right? This came to me during the week. All right? And hurricanes are these destructive, hugely destructive storms. They're called typhoons in the Pacific and hurricanes in the Atlantic. So some of you just learned something right there. Now, hurricane season, I don't know how many of you knew this, but hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 30th. It's about 6 months of the year. And then even within that, the highest rate of hurricanes happens in August and September. So in other words, hurricanes it is possible you can occasionally get a hurricane in January, February. It's not impossible, but it almost never happens. Now, why is it that hurricanes don't happen in winter? Again, I don't want to get you started answering in this message, right? So just stay quiet. Next week, loud, crazy. The reason we don't get hurricanes in winter is because it's colder. The temperature of the water is lower, and hurricanes require heat in the ocean. They require heat and energy to birth. And so the hotter the temperature of the ocean, the more energy you have, the more storms, the stronger they are. Now, different parts of the ocean are different temperatures, but the ocean is all connected, and when the heat of the ocean as a whole begins to go up, your chance of getting a hurricane goes up until eventually you get hurricanes, you get more powerful ones, you get more frequent ones. Our society, in some senses, is like an ocean. We're all connected together, and different parts of society are at different temperatures, there's no question, but we're all connected together. And when certain groups of people or lots of groups of people all become agitated and upset, and everybody starts feeling strong emotions, I'm going to tell you what goes up. The likelihood of storms, of extreme events, and of violence goes up. That's what happens. So some of us as Christians, we don't take responsibility. And non-Christians do this too, but I'm not talking to non-Christians, I'm talking to Christians. Some of us as Christians, we just think, well, I'm not part of the problem. I'm not amplifying calls for violence. I would never talk about violence. You don't have to talk about violence to increase the temperature. When we talk angry all the time and post angry or whatever it is and amplify emotions, we contribute to the rise in temperature of the entire society, and as that happens, we get increasing amounts of violence, extreme events. That's just reality. So one of the things we need to do following Jesus in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk, we all, regardless of views, regardless of which side, we all need to take ownership for dialing down the heat in our societal discourse right now. As Christians, we should not be the ones cranking the heat up. We should be the ones bringing the temperature down. And again, this is so important. The forest is very dry right now, and this is not a one-side problem. This is a both sides problem, and this is where we as human beings, this is where our humanness comes in. We tend to deflect. When there's a problem in society, the problem is never caused by my side. It's never caused by our side. Whatever side we're on, it's never caused by my side. It's always the other side. This is a both sides problem. I just want to show you, just to help you see that the forest is dry, and this is a both sides problem. I just want to show you acts of political violence, assassination, and attempts in the last year here Well, it's actually not in Canada. It's in the United States, hence part of the reason I didn't talk about this last week. But yet, it's affecting us. Just over a year ago, a man tried to shoot President Donald Trump. Fortunately, he missed. Now, this is where us Christians do say some weird things too. Some people say God deflected the bullet. Unfortunately, God deflected the bullet into someone else who died. So I do think sometimes we need to be a little careful about how we talk about God's intervention into things. I don't think God wanted the other man to die. But that's a Republican being shot. Just a few months ago, it was just April 13th, Governor Josh Shapiro, who is a Democrat, and his family were asleep in their governing mansion, and a man who hated his politics broke into the house, threw a Molotov cocktail, tried to burn the whole family in there, and wanted to kill Josh Shapiro with a hammer. Fortunately, troops broke in and saved the family. That's an extreme event. Both sides. Then, you want to see how dry the forest is right now? May, June. 2 months after that, 3 months ago, a man, by the way, who is an evangelical Christian, used to be a pastor, took a gun, and because he did not like their politics, and he called himself pro-life, which is incredibly ironic in a very evil sense, drove to Senator John Hoffman's place, a Democrat, shot John Hoffman and his wife 15 times. Then drove to State Representative, also Democrat, Melissa Hortman's place and killed her and her husband. And then, last week, we had the murder of Charlie Kirk. Forest is pretty dry. James says, think how small a spark it takes to set a forest on fire. Then, as Christians, we read James and we apply it to the other side. Again, I will have you notice, this is American political violence. Doesn't make it any better. Again, that's part of the reason why I didn't say anything last week. But it is affecting us. By the way, you say, well, yeah, but Charlie Kirk is the only Christian on there. That's actually not true either. Democrat Melissa Hortman and her husband, here's a picture of them. Here's Melissa Hortman, here's her husband. Are both dead now. She taught Sunday school in her church every Sunday morning when she was around. Her 2 young adult kids don't have parents for the rest of their lives now. Also Christians. Now, I get, we don't all know, we're all not, a lot of Christians, when it comes to grief or anger, we're all not going to feel equally sad about everybody in the world who dies. Absolutely true. Nor should we feel bad about that. We're going to feel more bad about people we know. We're going to feel more bad about people we follow. We're going to feel more bad about people that influenced us more. All of that is perfectly fine so long as we remember one background piece of information and keep this background piece of information always fresh. That Jesus is equally grieved about each of these. Let's never forget. You remember what happened to Joshua? He gets up in the middle of the night and he meets an angel of the Lord and he says, whose side are you on? What did the angel of the Lord say? No one's. You think Jesus is on a side? Jesus loves human beings. He loves all of us. And he is grieved about all of this. So, let's go to our 3 big emotions, grief and anger and inspiration. Let's talk about grief first. Our big emotions in this moment. For those people who are feeling grief, grief is healthy. Jesus felt grief. Jesus wept. Jesus weeps. When people die and people are attacked and a dad and a husband is killed on a university campus, Jesus weeps. When a woman and her husband are gunned down and leave their 2 young adult children to have no parents for the rest of their lives, Jesus weeps. When a senator and his wife are sprayed with 15 bullets, Jesus weeps. When a president is shot at, Jesus, and someone else dies, Jesus weeps. Grief is healthy. Here's the watch out. This is a really important watch out. Grief is healthy. Grief can easily be turned to rage. And this is where we have to watch out, because there will be, from both sides, every side, all around, there will be political leaders and pastors and leaders of every stripe who, probably not even consciously thinking about it, it's just their natural bent, will seek to turn grief to rage. Grief is healthy. We already saw rage is not. Part of the reason grief turns to rage easily is because we prefer to feel angry to feeling sad. Sadness is a vulnerable emotion. Not human beings, as a general rule, we do not like to feel sad. Feeling sad makes me feel weak. Feeling sad makes me feel vulnerable. Anger is the opposite. Anger makes me feel powerful. Anger makes me feel strong. Anger makes me feel like I'm in control, which is why we prefer to feel anger to sadness. And for those of us who are struggling emotionally or don't have the energy in the moment, we will often subconsciously deflect sadness or grief into anger and rage. It's just what we do, and there are leaders who will happily do that for us and help us to do that. However, anger, and again, here's the thing you have to understand by anger, by default, when we feel angry, we feel right. We don't ever feel angry and think, I have a really dumb position, but I'm angry about it anyway. We feel angry, and we feel like what we're angry about, we are in the right. Time to march. Time to go to war. All kinds of great slogans that fit with anger. However, James warns us. My brothers and sisters, he says, take note. Take note. What does James want us to take note of? Everyone should be quick to, okay, this is the one time you're allowed to, should be quick to what? Listen. Huh. Wow. Now that's actually radical in an age of social media. Everyone should be quick to listen. By the way, and again, you don't have to answer. I don't want to get you in the habit of talking right now, but the word everyone here means everyone. Everyone. All of us, each person, regardless of views or politics, everyone should be quick to listen. Now, here's the thing with this. If we only listen to the people who are like us, we're not really listening. We may as well be talking to ourselves. If we only listen to people who are exactly the same as us, you may as well go into the bathroom or into the backyard and yell to yourself. Everyone should be quick to listen. The problem in James is that the church was fighting. The forest was dry, and the sparks were lit, and this whole thing was going to burn up. And James was not telling them, make sure in your various factions that you listen within your faction. That will heal everything. So according to James, one of the most important things we can do, take note of this, is that everyone should be quick to listen to people who aren't the same. Say, I don't even know how to do that anymore. And by the way, that doesn't mean you can never read, or we can never read anything we agree with, or never listen to anything we agree with. Yeah, absolutely we should. But what if for like every 7 or 8 or 900 podcasts and articles we read that already we just agree with from the beginning, what if every 8 or 9 of those we agree with, we every once in a while took time to listen or read something or hang out with someone who sees things totally different? Whoa, that's radical. You can just feel it. Whoo! Actually, neat. For those who want something very practical help here, I just want to practically, this is very practical. You can pay attention to it. You can disregard at the end. There's a very practical way in this era of social media. By the way, you realize in all of this, here's a quick pause. You know in Ephesians, I'm going to read it to you. I have to find it on the fly. 1 and 2 Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians. You know there's this famous verse, right? Ephesians 6. Yeah. I should not have done this. Oh yeah, Ephesians 6 verse 12. Very, very famous, okay? So you can, if you take notes, you can write this down, you can look this up later. I have a really cool interpretation for this. Ephesians 6 verse 12 says this, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood." You know this one, right? "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood." So our wrestle isn't against each other. Our wrestle isn't with conservatives or liberals or NDP or who or what or Americans or Canadians. That's not what our wrestle is. Our wrestle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness. Okay. Right in there, for this time, I know this isn't what Paul meant, but right in there we could write the algorithms of social media companies. Because let me tell you, Paul's picture here is that the powers of darkness, it's like you got 2 cats, and the powers of darkness hold them up by their tails. You should never do this. That's why it's only the powers of darkness would do this. But you hold them up. This was not written down. I'm going to get in trouble for this. But the powers of darkness holding 2 cats, and then the cats claw each other. And Paul says, stop clawing each other. It's the power of darkness who are holding you up by your tails who are the problem. I'll tell you what one of the powers of darkness right now are. Billion-dollar social media companies that have algorithms that feed you more and more and more of the content and news that you want. The same company makes billions of dollars off of sending this group of 10 million people the exact opposite content it sends to this group of people, making each of those groups of people hate each other more and be more afraid of each other. It's like holding the cats up. Then the people fight. And these billion-dollar companies get rich. That, ladies and gentlemen, is disgusting. Anyway, that was a rabbit trail. Paul did not actually think social media companies. But I'm putting them in there from now on. And by the way, not all social media is bad. He's not, he hates Instagram. No, people also just share fun stuff on there. That's good too. But you know what I'm talking about. There's a really neat website for those of you who want to combat some of this. It's called allsides.com. Amazing website. It actually compares headlines and news articles from left and right and center and shows you the biases of them. It's really, really cool. I'd highly recommend at least check it out. And you'll see how people who only look at conservative media, what are they thinking? And what are they getting fed? And people who are only into liberal media, what are they thinking? What are they getting fed? And you can actually just see the cats being held there and scratching each other. It's crazy. But let's keep reading. Everyone should be quick to listen to people who are different from them and think different. But I have so much respect, some of the friendships I know of in this church, where people who see things politically so different and will even talk about those things and even disagree about those things, but they're friends. That's being Christ and Christ followers in this society. Slow to speak. Slow to speak opinions. Slow to pass on opinions. slow to think you are right and everybody else is stupid and evil, and slow to become angry. Again, this is not Kris Duerksen chapter 1, this is James chapter 1. Very important to remember that. Why? Here it is. Because human anger, you will feel so justified when you feel angry. You will feel so like the other side is in the wrong. Human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. So that's anger. We've talked a bit about grief. Grief is healthy. We've talked a bit about anger and the danger of grief turning to anger. I want to finish now by talking about inspiration, because there's a whole group of Christians right now that are feeling inspired. And feeling inspired is a potentially wonderful thing. And for those Christians who are feeling inspired by Charlie Kirk's assassination, not that they're inspired by the event itself, but inspired in the aftermath, feeling inspired has the potential to bear a lot of good fruit if we are being inspired to do the right things. So my question is, in the aftermath of this event, what are we being inspired to do? And we're going to finish with two passages, one from John 13 and one from Luke 22. And we're going to look at the teaching and then the actions of our Savior and Master, Jesus. We'll start with John chapter 13, his teaching. What are we being inspired to do? A new command I give you. Already some of you know what's coming. Oh, come on. You're a broken record, Kris. It's not Kris chapter 13. It's too bad Jesus was such a broken record on this, right? A new command I give you. What is it? Love one another. Love one another. Now, of course, the Greek word there means love only people in your group, right? No. A new command I give you, love everyone who agrees with you, despise everyone who doesn't. No. If we call ourselves Christians, it means we actually want to follow Christ. He says, a new command I give you. Command, not a new idea I give you. A new thought, if you get to it, that I give you. A new command I give you. Love one another. Now, not just any kind of love. Because we all do this, by the way. We define love in our own ways. As I have loved you, that's the defining thing. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. We're actually called to love in the same way Jesus loved, which means what? When his enemies came to attack him, he attacked them back. He's a hard one to follow. And why should we love in the same way he loved? By what? Loving in the way he loved. By this, everything in verse 34, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. How does Jesus want us to change our culture? How does Jesus want us to change our culture? He says it right here. It's not through culture war. It's not through any kind of war or military takedown of the people who think differently than us. Everyone will know, everyone, if you love, that you are my disciples. So, what are we being inspired to do? If love is the way we're going to change our culture, Here's a very practical step for all of us. The first practical step is relationships. The first practical step is relationships. Again, just in your minds, you don't have to say it out loud. When Jesus came to earth, who did he build relationships with? Did he just build relationships with all the other religious people? With all the people who had it together? I'm asking an honest question. We call ourselves Christians. Are we Christians first and whatever political party second? Or are we whatever political party first and Christians second if we can fit it in there? When Jesus came to earth, he had this very frustrating habit, frustrating for all the religious people, of hanging out with the tax collectors and the prostitutes and the widows and the orphans and the drunkards. And you know what the wild thing is? Lots of them ended up wanting to follow him. Imagine that. That doesn't mean he never hung around with religious people. He hung out with them too. But how can we ever expect to love our culture and change our culture for Christ, which I think we're supposed to want to do, if the only people we know and love and hang out with or have meals with or coffee with are other Christians? When's the last time we sat down with someone from the other side of something and actually just genuinely were interested in their life and how they viewed things? That's how you change things. Do you know that most people here in North America, they're not Christians because they've never heard about Jesus? The vast majority, particularly in this area where we're having church right now, the vast majority of people in North America, and particularly in this area, who are not Christians, are not Christians because they haven't heard about Jesus. They've all heard about Jesus. They just don't feel compelled to follow him. And a big part of the reason they don't feel compelled to follow him is we have not shown them a love that is compelling. Do you want to see what's happening in our society right now? In a very oversimplified way. So I'm bringing this to an end now. I got a diagram. I love diagrams. I want you to notice that this arrow goes both ways. Most of us as Christians already know that the arrow goes this way. Most of us as Christians, at some point in our lives, have expressed fear about society persecuting us, canceling us, taking away our rights. Sometimes those have been legitimate fears. We feel like society is going to take away from us our rights, our freedoms, our fill in the blank. And there have been at times legitimate reasons for us to think that. But any of you who has any interest in some of the them in our society enough to actually listen to them, I have about a half dozen people in my life who I love dearly who are not Christians. And I ask them questions all the time. What do you think about this? And we have conversations about what's going on in the news. They hear what I'm thinking. I get to hear what they're thinking. You know what's the most fascinating thing about listening to non-Christians right now? They have the exact same fears about us as we have about them. Is that not the craziest thing? You sit down and listen to some non-Christians right now in our society. You know what they'll tell you about Christians? We're afraid that they're going to cancel us if we get power. And they have examples. We're afraid they're going to persecute us and take away what we feel our rights are. And they will have examples on their side, just like we have examples on ours. To me, when I look at this, that is heart transforming. Because, and we finish with this story very quickly. Garden of Gethsemane. While Jesus was still speaking, a crowd, this is in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's speaking to his disciples, a crowd. And really we could say a mob. A bunch of soldiers and a bunch of thugs. came up, and the man who is called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. So a mob comes up, and they're threatening. When Jesus' followers saw what was going to happen, they said, Lord, should we strike with our swords? And don't you love how us modern Christians read this story now? Oh, those simple disciples. Those morons. Those idiots. What were they thinking? How could they not get it through their heads? And as soon as we get threatened, we shout out en masse on social media, Lord, should we strike with our swords? Militaristic language. It's time to fight. And you pointed out all the good reasons. Did the disciples have good reasons? Yes. A bunch of thugs were about to attack their friend, their master, their Messiah. Yes. I can think of 100 good reasons why they should strike with their swords right now. This group of guys was a bad group of guys with bad intentions. Yes, if I'm standing there right now, I say, yes, you should strike with your swords. So then Peter asks the question, like so many of us, and then goes ahead and takes a swing. As I always say, I've said this 100 times before, he wasn't looking for the ear, he wasn't trying to hit the ear, he was trying to take off the head. The guy ducked, right? So one of them struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his right ear. That must have felt good. You thugs, we're taking you on. You are not going to do evil to the one we love. You will not do it. And look what Jesus says. No more of this. They had 100 good reasons to fight back. And Jesus said, no more of this. He doesn't stop there, though. He doesn't just leave the guy's ear on the ground and think, well, that's what you get for coming here. Look what he does next. And he touched. Jesus reaches across to the other group, the group that not only does not like him, they hate him, they are coming to hurt him. And he reaches across to that group. This is the kind of love that changes a society. And he touched the man's ear in the other group and healed. What would some of us feel right now if Jesus came to earth right now, and whatever side of whatever divide you feel you're on, Jesus came down and went to people on the other side and started healing and touching them? Because that's what he would do. I think this is the diagram we should have in our minds. I think as Christians, we need to be inspired to open up these circles. It's got to stop being us and them, and we have to stop waiting for our society to be Jesus to us, and we have to go to them with love and listening and bring Jesus to them by building bridges. Now, if Charlie Kirk's death is inspiring you or us to build bridges to people that you before didn't like or didn't listen to, if his death is inspiring you to build bridges and go to the other and bring Jesus to other people and listen and care for them, then that is a wonderful thing, and we're going to see much fruit. If his death is inspiring us to go to war, you cannot overcome evil with evil. You get more evil. I want you to bow your heads with me and close your eyes. Lord, I'm speaking this message to myself. I'm not speaking this message to any other person in here but myself, first of all. I want to live this. Father, I hope that not a single person in here this morning feels condemned. A whole bunch of condemnation and anger is not going to help this situation. We are in a dry forest, and it's time for us to start swallowing the sparks instead of spouting them. I pray that you would help us to bridge the divides in our society. That's what sets us apart from everybody else. The Jesus followers bridge the divides. The Jesus followers go to the others. And Lord, I pray that your love would be known by everyone in this room. The reason we can do this is because you love each of us so much. We don't have to be angry and afraid because you love us. And like Cheryl said before, we are forgiven. What an amazing thing. We're forgiven. We're clean. You love us. We can take that to everybody in our society today. Just take a deep breath. Lord, what might you be saying to each of us here today? Amen.